Hi, my name's Bob Greenyer, and I'm a volunteer with the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project. So welcome this 5th November 2023, where I will be asking if the disappearance of MH370, Malaysian Airlines 370, was an application of the Fractal Toroidal moment. And first off, I'd like to say my condolences for the family of anyone who happened to have someone that they loved on this plane. You never get over the loss of someone, and often more so when they're taken too soon. I can't begin to imagine what it must feel to not be able to know what happened to your loved one. This video is a discussion based on what we may consider that we have understood or are beginning to understand about certain aspects of our physical reality and what is possible within it in relation to work that was shared by someone in 2014 and brought to light most recently by an internet personality called Ashton Forbes. I was first pointed at his work by a former founding director of the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project, Mattia Velat, who is currently working in one of the EU-funded low-energy nuclear reactions projects out of Szczecin in Poland. And for the most part, I will use the presentation that I gave in Szczecin at the International Conference on Condensed Matter Nuclear Science, called ICCF, number 25, earlier this year. So before I get going, I want to just show a couple of things that for me, I found helped me to kind of understand what is going on in the phase singularity. And we will go over that in the center of quanta of the fractal toroidal moment. And these may help you, I don't know. You may even be able to better describe what's going on than I will. But perhaps you can get it intuitively from what I'm about to show you. But this was in the Science Museum here in Brno in the Czech Republic. A very, very good museum, which I thoroughly recommend people go and visit if they are ever in this part of Europe. And not only because of what I'm about to show you, but also because of the fact that they have almost a history of scanning electron microscopes, because many of them were, the early ones were actually made here by a company called Tesla, which basically made everything electronic here in the Czech Republic during the Soviet period. And it was eventually bought out by various companies like FEI and then became part of Thermo Fisher Scientific. And that is actually the company that makes the microscope that I have recently used to show different examples of this process at work. And even the most recent backgrounds for my presentation, which you can download from ICCF 25, have some of the most significant examples of this phenomena, in my view, that have been observed experimentally. So, without further ado, I'm going to show you what I'm blathering on about. And that is these two wonderful physical examples of the kind of processes that may be at play. So on the left, you've got something that you might see a version of in a children's playground. and it allows one to easily show the sort of change in angular frequency as you pull material into the center. And so I'm going to play that. Hopefully it'll play that one first. Okay, ready for angular momentum? So that moment. So pull it into the center. Okay, that's that one. So essentially, as you pull the mass into the center, the speed of rotation goes up. And when that happens, the bearings on this roundabout, they get louder, and they have to emit energy at a faster rate via sound and thermal photons. So phonons and photons. And I want you to hold that in mind as I show you a couple of other videos here. The next one is this wonderful gyroscope. Again, this is not something that you will potentially see in a playground, but it's a similar thing to this. But it shows the precession and so forth as you try and tilt a gyroscope. Okay, so let's watch that. So here is my flywheel. I'm going to spin that up. Right, I'm going to stand on the pivot here, and if I go like that. So there we have what happens when you've got a spun flywheel and you change its orientation. It forces something to rotate. So, and the more energy it has, and the more you force its rotation, the more the fulcrum there is forced to spin. Okay, so with these two in mind, the requirement to lose energy through sound and light in this instance in order to bring the thing to rest, and this one where you force rotation by changing the orientation of the thing that is spinning. I'm going to show you this next one. And what we have here is some sort of parabolic funnel, and we're going to roll some washers. Now, unfortunately, the washers are not of the same type, and I'll lay this here. There isn't actually any repulsion between these particular washers, but I would like you to try and imagine, if you will, that there was repulsion between these washers, and that your system was being exposed to a wide flux of these washers that would mutually repel each other unless they could get phase synchronized, in which case they would be able to form pairs which are then able to occupy the space-time. And the analogy that I'm going to be pushing you towards considering is that whilst this does go down this funnel and then drops out the bottom, I want you to think about the phase singularity in the fractal toroidal moment, or in a Mobius strip, where it does go down to a point, but then it never goes above that point. So it gets fed in, but it gets stuck at the phase singularity. So hold that in mind as I play this video. Okay, I'll play that again. So again, what I'm saying is, if you go back to the previous slides, if you can imagine if we're forcing things that are already got rotation to go into a fixed center, we might force it to increase its angular velocity, and in doing so, it's going to push the thing that's in front of it, if it's repelling it, away from it, and kind of force it into an equilibrium position, which would be 180 degrees out of phase, which is kind of what you need to produce coherence in electrons. And of course, as it tilts as well, it forces rotation and spin together. So one is forcing energy concentration, which will then be radiated, as it is here, and one is forcing spin in the other orientation. So let's go forward and do this again. So I'm just going to pause that over here, and you can imagine that these are the... Oh, sorry, I'm giving the game away now. Let's try that again. Why doesn't it pause for me? Okay. You can imagine that if this one had another one over here, which was mutually repelling it, they would end up on opposite sides, okay? And that, in my view, helps me to understand how, when something is coming into a toroidal moment, fractal toroidal moment that has a phase singularity, it can end up cohering electrons first by creating Cooper pairs, 180 degrees out of phase, and because it is this phase singularity, they are forced to the same energy level. Now, obviously, Ken Shoulders empirically observed that when an exotic vacuum object was forming, it would emit 2 kilo-electron-volt photons. And I am wondering whether that is the default quanta that can be emitted from an exotic vacuum object because of some form of relationship when it's forcing this coherence. And by releasing energy, you are releasing energy from the electron, kinetic energy, whatever kinetic energy it had, is being released as they are coming into phase coherence. So that's not only the same matter, be that a Cooper pair of electrons at exactly the same kinetic energy, that means they have the capability to form a condensate, but they also need to be phase synchronized to form a singular wave function in a coherent matter state. And this center point here we are looking at is the center point of a topological monopole. So you can imagine that this is this well into which the electrons are being fed. And this is the point of phase singularity, where they have to end up at exactly the same energy, and they're still forced to orbit, and there's more coming in all of the time, but they don't go any further. So you are able to concentrate energy at the core. And this is what is going on in this structure. And as was shown in, I think it was the 2017 paper published in a major peer-reviewed journal, that when you get a fractal electromagnetic structure that is self-similar, and it's the only time I've seen it termed fractal, where the small section, the wheel within a wheel within a wheel, this level, is equivalent to the whole, you can get their toroidal moments cancelling, so you do not need an electric field dipole oscillation to cancel the electromagnetic waves out to give you your non-radiating boundary. But we know that it has this feed into the bottom of the overall structure. Okay, so that is kind of where I wanted to start today's thinking. And at the moment I have myself talking to myself, so I'm just going to find out why that is. How is everyone? Let me just find out what's going on there. Okay, I'm not there. I'm there. That's what's happening. Okay, let's kill that. Okay. Alrighty. So the video that I'm referring to actually is apparently it was published in 2014 and it's been resurrected by Ashton Forbes, and I'm just going to find it now. And this is the apparent video, and it is available on the Wayback Machine. Okay, and why it's interesting to me, and I get rid of my mugshot, is what you see. So if you haven't seen it, I'll just play it through. So apparently this is like a stereoscopic image. Apparently the mouse that you just saw appearing on the screen is a 60 or 30 frames per second mouse in a Citrix session. And here we have this orb coming in. Now, another one joins it and another one joins it. And at the museum in Brno, you can actually see fantastic stereoscopic display where you can see all these beautiful images from Switzerland from the late 1800s in false color. And watch this, watch this. The guy managing the mouse is dragging across, sort of pan zooming on a very large image, and poof. Okay, so a couple of points about this. This is an overhead view. Apparently, it's an IR image at night. I will say categorically that what I said to Ross Coulthart in my interview with him some long while ago, which you can see on remoteview.icu, that these structures are almost, I would say, exactly equivalent to what I witnessed when I was 7 years old, as best as I can remember, in 1979, in Worthing in the UK. And my father asked me to come downstairs with my brothers and sister and asked us to look out west and up into the sky. And we saw these four objects appear and then disappeared. Only recently, when I've been talking about this, did I realize that due west of the house, which is 32 Offington Gardens, Worthing, West Sussex, United Kingdom. You can go and look it up on Google Maps. Due west of that is what was called Shoreham Airport. I think it's got a different name now, but you'll still find it if you look for Shoreham Airport. And it was the oldest purpose-built airport in the world. There was an airstrip made for the Wright brothers to land, I think, the year before. But this was a purpose-built airport. So if you're in the southeast of England, I recommend you go and see that. And it was literally due east in exactly the line that we witnessed this phenomena. And the phenomena were these balls. Okay? And from my point of view, that was 1979. This is not new. And I would suggest that they were created from the ground at the airport and caused to form in the sky and be controlled from the ground. My conclusion is that they were some form of test of a weapon or a defensive measure and it would make a lot of sense coming from that location. My father is not an alien. My father, as I've said before, was a very senior Mason. He said at one point he was the most senior Mason in the UK. That's a Freemason. And I know he had contacts in the UK Navy because he was revered for his short stint. He was on HMS Indomitable on the way to the Korean War, when there was a fire in the magazine, and I've spoken about this on my blog, and he witnessed men being burnt, and but he was revered because of his physicality in the UK Navy. And in fact, actually, I was playing rugby once, and for the university, and I went to Bath, and we played a game there, and for whatever reason, I was talking or singing to some girls with another person that was at the university, and the rest of the rugby team was so drunk they just left without me, and I was stuck there, and my card wouldn't work, and then he got eaten by the bank ATM, and I just phoned up my dad, and you know, he had a Navy friend there, and he hosted me for the night and paid for my ticket back to the university in Brunel University in West London, where I was studying a special type of engineering course. And so he had UK Navy contacts and was a very senior Mason. So that's what I know. But what I can tell you is these are essentially equivalent to the objects that I was shown in 1979. Okay? So that being said, what we see is a formation of 3 objects around this. If Ashton is in the chat, maybe he can go to remoteview.icu and send the video, or I'll dig it out from the Jeremy Rees interview, where there are another view. Now, when I saw this after Matthew sent it to me, I thought, well, okay, this is interesting. There is a formation there, which is exactly what you would probably want to create if you wanted to do something with the fractal toroidal moment. And so when the punchline came, I was not surprised. Now, this is 2014. I actually shut my animation and special effects business in India in 2014. I'm telling you categorically that every video that I've seen relating to this, I could have faked long before 2014. 100% on my own. 100%. Now, I had not a clue about how this technology worked in 2014. Okay? I'd essentially stopped working for my own company in 2012. So, you know, and because I was starting to volunteer for the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project. And so I didn't do it. It wasn't me. That being said, if I did want to do it, like I say, I had no idea how a technology would work that would end up with what you are seeing in the last frames of this video. I would have no motivational reason to create a video that showed what is showed here. None at all. So the fact that this is historically, it would appear, on the Wayback Machine, and that's where this is being played from right now, in 2014, it means that someone got really, really, really lucky with what they were doing. Really, really lucky. Okay? And I believe that what was already shared at ICCF 25 can explain potentially both options for what may have happened in this video. The first option, obviously, is that the plane is somehow made to disappear, and and that is annihilation. The other one would be that it is put into a wormhole, and it reappeared instantaneously at the other end of the wormhole. So one view is that you could take that apparently this plane was in some distress. Ashton talks, and I don't know, but I'm taking what he says as being the possibility that people can accept, that there was some sort of lithium battery fire on this plane and that it was doomed. It couldn't land in sea. It was breaking apart anyway. And so you might have a situation where the people that had access to this technology might have thought, well, they're all going to die anyway. And with respect to the families that did suffer a loss as a result of whatever happened here, I'm sorry, but maybe they thought we can test this technology on this particular aircraft and there will be no net loss. Or they might have thought, well, we potentially have a chance to save them and we can potentially use this teleportation technology. And they did, and it didn't work. And then there's a subtext to that they might have done it and it did work, and these all people had to go into, witness protection program or whatever they call it, because they're supposed to have had this plane disappear, and you can't really announce that you've got teleportation technology because who's going to take a plane from then? They're going to want to be teleported, right? No one wants to go to an airport and go through security and do like 10, 15, 20 hours on a plane if you can just be teleported, right? So, you want to keep that for military reasons and stealth reasons and so forth. Okay? The argument that you can do volumetric lighting with these clouds, it's something that I was doing on a regular basis in my business long before this. Long before this, right? So that for me is not an important argument in terms of the veracity. For me, the thing here is that this has provenance without, certainly in my view, anyone in the public understanding that this could be possible and the way that it is possible. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to try and find the other video, which I think Ashton's got on his Twitter. So let me see if I can find it there. Okay, I think it's here. So I think we can probably get it from here. Okay. Right, yes, I think we can do it from here. Okay. Okay. So what we've got is one of the stereoscopic images over on the right. And then this second image on the left, I think, I'm not totally certain what this is meant to be, but it looks like it's a thermal imaging colorized version, but taken from maybe a AWACS or something that was tracking the plane in its distress. Okay, so and for those people, I hummed and ahed for the best part of 10 days on whether I was going to discuss this, and really when I saw the Jeremy Reese interview and realized that this was a video from 2014, and with the context that I've just given you and what you see, and knowing that this can cause things to disappear, and when they tend to do that disappearance, they go in a flash, I was compelled to do this. So for those that like to attack the project when they feel that we're going off subject, I'm sorry for you, but I believe that this is fully on subject, and I think that at some point we've got to address ways in which this technology has been used, because we need to wake up to its possibility. If it turns out to be fake, well, it's a pretty well-informed fake, is all I can say. And I didn't go back in time and force them to make this video with what we know now. Okay, so we play the second video here. All right. So someone in the chat is saying that this is from a drone. So thank you, Nick Knock, for that detail. Okay. So as we play this, now I just want to say that these videos have been through a number of encoding cycles. I learnt through my AV and animation business every type of artifact you can possibly get. And it kind of pleases me to see the blocks of the encoding here, because it means that someone hasn't tried to use one of these modern AI filters to remove the block encoding and add artifact and fake imagery on top of the original footage. I expect someone to try and do that later down the line, and so it's better, in my view, to review something that's closer with only a few generations of artifacting in my discussions here. Okay, so as I play this forward, you can see the banking of the plane here is consistent with potentially something that's following it from sort of almost on the same kind of plane as it, when I say the vertical plane. And you can see the first ball coming in here. And then the second ball. And I'm just going to play this through, and then we're going to look at it a little bit closer. It's a shame it goes off shot there, but okay, so there you go. That's the disappearance, as it were. So I'm going to go through here. There's a couple of points that Ashton seems to talk about as being very important. He seems to think that there is a forward-pointing coolness. So what you're looking at here in the thermal imaging, the yellow area here is probably the hottest part, which is the central line of the body of the plane. You've got some warmer vapor coming out as the contrails, and maybe if this was actually in some sort of fire, then also this might be some smoke from that fire. And then you have these structures which are emitting light. Interestingly, you can see on this one, there's a bit of red coming out there. And this would kind of imply that these are warmer than the environment. And for that to happen, one might expect that if they didn't have their own energy source, they must be extracting the energy from the environment. I really, when I'm playing through this video, I see that the black is mostly behind, but there does seem to be a little bit in front. And it's not conclusive to me because of the JPEG artifacting. Maybe there is a better version of this video. I don't know. However, or rather the interframe artifacting or something. However, what I will say is that we know from Extreme Interactions, that is a video that I presented in Azizi a few years ago with the work of Henk Uren and David Boutlier on the Vega experiments, that the exotic vacuum objects will fire a thing, or it has some sort of projected field out in front of it that will cause other exotic vacuum objects to orbit around them. So there is something that goes out in front. I believe that this is the toroidal moment, the beam that goes out far faster in front of it, and that, along with the, let's say, the Ukon of Asara, this part of the fractal toroidal structure, this part here, this changes epsilon 0 of the physical vacuum, and it has like a beam that comes out in front of it, and that enables all of the funky magic that these things can do. And because of the non-radiating boundary, when these things get close to it, they don't do anything until they get within the radiating boundary, and then they orbit around them. And that's true of the toroidal moment that fans out from the, or projects out from the front of the device. Of course, we know things come in from the rear as well. And we've seen that in many different systems, from hydrodynamic to magnetohydrodynamic, and this would be a fluid, superfluid in the ether that is doing the main funky business that would lead, in my view, to this potentiality. Okay. So, and what I see actually in these images, and maybe it's artifacting, I don't know, but is often we are seeing, and maybe, I don't know if I can zoom in, I can't zoom in. We are seeing the non-radiating boundary, and you can go and look at this video itself, but inside that there is a much smaller thing, and it does tend to be offset. It does tend to be offset, and that would be consistent with the toroidal structure in the center and the kind of mushroom that it creates with the material as it goes around orbiting the fractal toroidal structure in the center of the exotic vacuum object. So again, you can see there's a light bit here, and when you go and look at this video yourself, it's probably not clear with the additional YouTube encoding going on in this live stream. There is a boundary at a distance, and this is all consistent with what I've showed you with the structures. Again, here we can see this. It's got this arched bit here at the front, but the actual non-radiating boundary is much larger. Here, non-radiating boundary, much smaller focal point in the center. Here, mushroom type shape, non-radiating boundary offset. Here, mushroom shape, non-radiating boundary offset. Okay, now I'm going to see if I can go back to that because it's very clear on this. Look, here we go. We have our non-radiating boundary, okay? And we have this little tuft of thing at the top, right? Now, I'm going to go back to the monopole in this presentation. And we have shown that our work is actually more accurate than this. So if you can imagine this here, this is where the torus is kind of focusing its moment to lead to the monopole location, the topological monopole here. This is a dome that you get, and we showed that our observations are more accurate even, or very closely match the theoretical modeling of a topological monopole. Okay, so let's go back to this if I can. Where is it? Where's it gone? Is it going to go? There we go. So here, this is this top. So that the monopole is actually at the base of this bit here. Okay, and this is the glowy bit that you see as material is pushed through, but then it hits the top of the non-radiating boundary and is fed back into the coherent structure. Okay. Here, this is very, very clear. This is almost exactly looking like the Aalto University peer-reviewed published structure. So the monopole would be at this point. The toroidal moment would be going out this way, and you can see the dark area in front. So it's cohering energy from here. Okay, so this is traveling in this direction, and it's cohering energy from in front of it, and that comes into what I call the Borg. Yeah, it becomes part of the collective. And here is the plume that you get. This is the Ukonophisara. Maybe we can get, yeah, so here, there. This is very, very clear. Okay, so the monopole's location is here. This is the non-radiating boundary. Okay, this is the phase inversion. The dark area above will be where it's cohering energy, and you will have the disruption beam coming in to the monopole at the bottom here. Okay. Again, here. So when I saw this video, it was like, well, to fake this one back in 2014 showed incredible understanding of technology that no one had an understanding outside of the black world, even if there was anyone that had an understanding in the black world. To fake this one and have the thermal imaging correctly representing and the non-radiating boundary and everything is beyond imagining. And unless there's some sort of Mandela effect where these things are being projected back into time and to fulfill a narrative to maybe discredit the work of the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project, I don't know. It seems a little bit sus. So here, if that doesn't tell you you've got your Ukon of Asara there, I don't know what will, right? It looks like this, okay? That is the bit that changes epsilon 0, okay? The permittivity of the vacuum, okay? And it's pulling it in here. It's correctly facing forward as it is at the moment. And so what you would want to do is you would want to bring these in, get them into their alignment, get them tracking the device accurately, get them equidistant, and then what you would do is you would rotate their orientation so their toroidal moments link up and make a super tor that would then have its azimuth going through the center of the craft that you are wanting to either disappear or teleport. Okay? And that is exactly, in my view, what goes on. Okay, so this is the non-radiating boundary. The actual tor, the actual monopole causing structure is much smaller, as we know. It's in this central section here. Okay? All right. And then you'll also want to pull them in together. And I will explain with scientific published papers that are I've discussed in great detail, and which is in my ICCF 25 presentation, where if you reduce the overall diameter of the Tor -1, the field strength both in the Tor -1 and through the azimuth goes up exponentially, and this is already experimentally proven. Okay, so let's see if we can see it. This for me is just open and shut, really. When I saw this, I thought, okay, now I have to talk about it. And here we go. We've got, so that's rotated round its orientation, and this one is now got its core there. But you can see very, very clearly the monopole is here. Okay, this is the Ukon of Asara. This is the Thor's hammer, the most powerful thing in the universe. It's changing epsilon and mu. Sorry, epsilon 0, the permittivity of the vacuum. Here again, absolutely crystal clear in my view. Absolutely crystal clear in my view. Perfect, absolutely perfect. As I'm stepping through this, it's just a wonder to see this technology at work. There we go. And this is exactly what's orbiting around here. Look at that. I mean, it's just, how beautiful is that? Totally, totally beautiful. Sorry to the families, again, that suffered their losses. Look at that. Look at that. Is that not our Thor's hammer? Right? Oh, dear. That's the non-radiating boundary. The actual structure that's creating the monopole is much smaller in here. We know almost exactly how small it is from our work, because it seems to be the same always. And there we go. So you can do this at your leisure. They're all doing the same thing. Oh, that's particularly lovely here. Look at that. Really, it's got the perfect monopole structure there. Look at this. Just glorious. Glorious. We have, if we generally get accepted that this is technologically possible, we have the most incredible future ahead of us. Just the most incredible future. Look at that. Look at that. Okay. So are we coming up to the money shot? You can see the heat signature from the engines here very clearly. You can even see sort of like sections of the fuselage where you've got the windows maybe radiating a bit of energy from the inside of the plane. I don't know whether maybe this is the other engine or it's a fire. I don't know. But anyway. Thing of great beauty. Now look, at this point, they seem to be tumbling the monopoles. So it's not going forward. It's starting to rotate itself. And, okay, do they align? Do they start to get into alignment? Because what you want is the monopoles to have their own azimuth to produce a ring to create another Tor above, and then you pull these in, and that creates the unification of the forces at phase singularity of the -1 Tors. Look, okay, so they're pulling in at that point, right? That's exactly what you want, right before. So they're rotating and pulling in, okay? That is exactly what you would need to do, and boom, it disappears. And it goes in a flash. And we have seen copper, if you remember in our Henk Uren's 15mm ball lightning structure, which caused copper to literally disappear. And I have it here in the drawer here for your viewing pleasure. Right? Check out this. This was sat on a piece of iron plate, and it was a copper, very highly thermally conductive pipe, and it had another iron plate above. And in the video of this, and in fact it was up this way, in the video of this, we see a hemisphere of coherent matter in the form of ball lightning appear, and it takes out a spherical hemisection out of that in multiple axes. It disappears when this happens. Does it go somewhere else? Don't know. Does it disappear? And we're going to look at what we found on the outside edge of this, which tells us about what these things are in their smaller quanta. But this is disappearance, and I hope it didn't reappear in Henk Uren's arm or whatever. Maybe it appeared somewhere else in the reactor, but it is a fairly large lump of copper, and anyone that knows anything about the thermal and electrical conductivity of copper would be very surprised that you had such a razor-sharp edge on that piece of copper that was sitting on another piece of metal. How did that occur? Well, that's because it got to the point of coherence, and when it's at coherence, the thing disappears. And as you know, on one side of that structure, there is a torus structure. And that might have been one of the responsible monopole structures that did this. So it could be annihilation or teleportation. I'm going to discuss both aspects with experimental data. But from my point of view, when I stepped through this video, it was like, I have literally no choice. I have to discuss this. I have no choice. I have to discuss it. Okay? And I think the first point that I will go to, and you can download my presentation from ICCF 17 on remoteview.icu. The first slide I will draw on is actually John Archibald Wheeler's commentary on what geons are and their relationships to black holes and his last thinking. And this slide for me is probably extremely pertinent now in respect of what you have just seen. So I will go here, and I will go, slideshow, play from current slide. Okay, so let me show you this. Okay, so what you are seeing here, I went back into the archives and found out that in 1976, there was a Japanese laser in a non-linear plasma paper. You might have heard Salvatore Pai talking about that if you saw the interview that was done between him and Ashton Forbes prior to me giving this presentation. But this is 1976, Japanese laser pulse into nonlinear plasma saw a greater than 1,000 Tesla field generated. Okay? This was replicated recently, funded by the US Department of Energy, the UK, the European Union, China, South Korea, Japan, and it was conducted on supercomputers and also done in the experimental way. So this is published in a major peer-reviewed journal, and it shows in 2021 that a laser in a nonlinear plasma produces over 1,000 Tesla's field. Very similar to the work done in 1976. And it produces trillions of volts per meter field. Okay? So those are the fields observable. The other thing is that if you are able to change epsilon zero, the permittivity of the vacuum, the dielectric constant, you are able to create changes in how easy it is to create fields. And I will go briefly over the permittivity transitions, the 2000 paper of Ken Shoulders. But what you can see over here on the right is taken from this extremely important paper. And what they noticed is the field, and in this case this is 20 microns across, the field here and through the azimuth, is 1.36 thousand Teslas. Okay? And what they found was that as you reduce the diameter here, you get the field getting much larger as you reduce the diameter. So if you can imagine our 5 micron fractal toroidal structure has much smaller toroids that have much smaller toroids in them and much smaller toroids in them, the size of the fields within those smaller toroids will literally be unimaginable. And if we're already getting trillions of volts per meter in this structure, what are we getting when we're getting these very much smaller structures? Remember what I showed you at the beginning of this video with the so-called electron analogues going down into that vortex motion, increasing their angular velocity, trying to expel energy as they go in louder and louder sound, and self-organizing at the phase singularity. Now, the interesting thing from this magnetic vector map here that you see here, okay, is that the magnetic beam that comes through the central azimuth here, which is mapped at 1.36 thousand Tesla, stops abruptly in the central plane of the torus. That is telling you that that is the magnetic phase singularity. Okay? So if you have something that has a magnetic moment, I don't know, like oxygen or protons or atomic hydrogen or, I don't know, electrons, then you could imagine that they would come down here and end up in a phased singularity structure at the bottom here. Okay? And you can see the overall structure here, and you can see the flux coming in right into the center here. Okay? Right? So, this is the structure of the Gion, according to John Wheeler, who worked on the Manhattan Project. He was kind of like the inventor of the black hole and the wormhole. And this is his 1954 major peer-reviewed journal. And this is 2 electromagnetic waves going around in a standing wave, producing a structure that has electric fields strong in the regions indicated here and magnetic fields in between, and held together by a gravitational azimuth. Now, I'm going to let him do this full speech here because it's extremely important.
Radiation, a pencil of radiation carries energy with it, and energy has mass, and therefore a pencil of radiation must exert some attraction on things beside it. What about getting a pencil of radiation curved into a circle so the light goes round and round, then the attraction it exerts is concentrated as if at the center. So what is it that bends this circle, this pencil of radiation into the circle? It's the gravitational attraction of the pencil of radiation itself. That was the idea of the geon. Actually, if you think of different possibilities for the size of that geon, bigger or smaller, you find that if it's very big, the energy is low. To push the radiation together requires energy. And you climb a hill like the hill of a volcano until you've come to a maximum energy. And then if the pencil of radiation becomes any smaller in size, the energy starts to go down and the thing collapses. So a geon is really an unstable entity. It either blows up into a cloud of radiation traveling away in all directions, or it collapses into a totally collapsed object, something that we today would call a black hole. But that stability analysis I didn't have in mind when I first published this work. Only later did I see that that's the feature that's dominant. But nowadays, I'm attracted with the idea that this pencil of radiation going around a circle does not have to be light. It could be gravitational waves. And you could have gravitational waves imploding to make a black hole.
That, my friends, that. So, if we go back to our video here. Right. What you've effectively got when he pulls out a bit. Now, as I've said before, what goes through the center of these structures is relic neutrinos, electrons, and ions. When you've got electrons and the relic neutrinos basically is, in my view, the gravitational medium through which it is allowed to propagate. And effectively, that is a gravitational beam, as well as you've got the magnetic beam going through there, as well as you've got electrons and ions. Is it any wonder that at the phase singularity you get unification of the forces? Because all of these things are forced into something of the order of the distance of the Planck's distance. Okay? And so that forms a gravitational azimuth, which can come out here and get sucked into the one up here and get sucked into here. And as this pulls towards the center, okay, and they change their orientation to make the proper ring, notice what John Archibald Wheeler says. It gets bigger and bigger, the azimuth, the intensity of the gravitational flux, but also the intensity of the phase singularity within this subfractal. And you have coming through here, relic neutrino, or rather, one could argue from the in front of it. So the relic neutrinos are coming in here. Your other matter is being pulled in, and there ends up being a phase singularity here. And we know from this distance, and I'm pretty sure that when you propagate the velocity of these coming in to the point at which it blows up, that the torus that is made here, the bloom will be outside of it, because it will make a non-radiating boundary as the material collapses into the gravitational event. Okay? And he's saying that makes a black hole. He's literally saying a black hole. So you could argue that these have their own little black hole at the center of them, but you're moving them around, okay? But when you move them in, you make a Tor plus one. So these are the Tors, and when they come together and orient themselves, they make a Tor plus one, where the gravitational azimuth comes through, and the magnetic comes this way, and your magnetic flux comes. We basically have unification of the forces, and at some point you get what you call a black hole. So that's exactly what John Archibald Wheeler was saying there in this slide. Okay, I'll just get him to repeat that last bit if I can.
Radiation,
Can I?
Radiation carries energy with it.
All right. Well, I can't get him to repeat that very easily. But anyway, the point is you can go and download this presentation. I have the videos embedded in it so that you can watch this at your viewing pleasure as many times as you like. Okay. So here we have the confirmation of the in a major peer-reviewed, funded by basically all of the world's major energy players, paper that replicates work from 1976 talking about putting a laser into a non-linear plasma. And it ends up with a phase singularity. Through this, which you see this 1.36 thousand Tesla, there is also a gravitational azimuth. So at the same point here, you have a gravitational beam coming through, and probably that is projected forward. So it might be the neutrino beam that is going. And I've speculated that this is why these things don't interact normally with electromagnetic fields, but they do interact with each other because they interact with the gravitational flux, or the relic neutrino beam that comes out. And there are Russians that talk about these things. They call them neutrino rockets. And I've discussed about those in previous presentations. Okay, so I'm going to go and find some other slides really to talk about here. So what do I mean, for those that don't know about phase singularity, what do I mean about the non-radiating boundary? Let's have a look at that. So we'll just quickly run through, and I'll pick out the relevant slides to explain this phenomena. And here we go. Thank you to Jeremy Rees of Alien Scientist for hosting this interview with Ashton. Because it gave me the impetus to, well, actually, I'd already decided I was going to do it because of what I saw in the monopoles there, but really, it was I just had no choice now. Okay, so it's interesting. I don't know why that's not showing full screen. Why is it not showing full screen? Let me just see what's going on there. Give me a second. Talk amongst yourselves. Okay, here we go. So this is what I'm talking about. This is an electric field and got magnetic field going around it in a Henk-Uren Vega experiment. This is 10 millimeters across, or something like that, this bolt. And you see these plasmoid structures here, these balls of fire, and with their double layers here. But this is an ejection. I'm going to talk more in future videos about where these specifically come from, in my view, because I've seen them in Ultra, and I've seen them in, which is a water-based, sound-based system for creating coherent matter. And I've seen them in the Vega experiments and in the work of our exposure of tungsten to a Mars gas. But you have these two things orbiting around each other, and they're not diverging or dispersing, and they're not responding to the electromagnetic field here. Okay. So it comes from Winston Bostick. So it's almost certain that Winston Bostick would have been a contemporary of John Archibald Wheeler, because Winston Bostick was given the project to convert the atomic bomb into fusion energy. And he worked at 3 labs, and it says here the work is being carried out at 3 major centers, including Princeton University and the Los Alamos Scientific Laboratory at Los Alamos, New Mexico. Of course, so therefore you would expect these people to know each other. And he created these tors of tors from these discharges. And you can go and look at my discussions on this. And this creates a non-radiating boundary. This is a normal understanding of what creates an anapole, which is a structure with a toroidal moment, and this is a basic toroidal moment, and an electric field dipole oscillating together to create a non-radiating boundary where your electromagnetic waves vanish, but you have a propagating vector and scalar potential. This is Ken Shoulders discussing essentially what is not really understood in 2016 here in Nature Materials, but he's discussing it in 1987, having looked at John Hutchison's materials for a few years, since 1982, so 5 years. And I'll just show, again, Tom Bearden here talking about this because it's relevant for this particular discussion.
Also, there's one other thing we must say about that. There is emerging in the last few years, and has emerged in orthodox science at an advanced level, what I would say is the very beginning, but it's moving pretty fast, theory of force-free fields. And these are getting very close to what Tesla was doing. They haven't added the anti-wave back in yet, but they're getting close. At least they're eliminating the overall force and doing something else with the electromagnetics that remains.
Okay, so he's spelling it out there. The force-free field is the scalar and vector potentials. Okay. Dearly departed Neil Crichton Gold was what gave me these kind of structures where you have, and you can see here, this effectively is that there will be a monopole over here, and there will be a monopole over here, here and here, and that creates, through its azimuth, these this bit where this material has disappeared. So you're literally seeing what's happening in that plane event occurring here on a very small level. Here is 3 coming together, here's 4 coming together, here's 5. And it is to do with these toroids, but this is just in a sound, in ultrasound, and you can see there's 2 coming in here, there's 2 spiraling in here, 2 spiraling in here, 2 spiraling in here. Okay, and these are regularly spaced around this structure. Okay, so this again is Alien Scientist. Thank you for that. And this is the overall structure that does the work. And we don't need to go into how you form these, but you do need these are the structures. So this is kind of like what you see at the front end of those structures, and why you have the non-radiating boundary. And this is the sort of bit anyway. That's where the Econovisara is. Okay. So, I'm going to discuss how you would get a teleportation using this technology by combining a yin and a yang. I've discussed how this 1980s work of I.M. Shekparanoff creating a phase singularity using a Mobius strip is... these 2 photos. One is a yin, and in the yin instance, there's energy extracted at a distance and brought into the center. Because in this instance you will be creating matter, you will find that the bloom is not so powerful. Okay. Whereas in this instance, where you are destroying matter with the yang and you're projecting energy out as a ball, okay. In this instance, you are going to gain a lot more energy. So let's say, for sake of argument, we were using this technology to fuse in the yin here 2 helium atoms. Let's say we get 26 million electron volts. Let's take the same 2 helium atoms here and destroy them. Well, you're going to get a few hundred mega electron volts short of 4,000 mega electron volts. From destroying those same nucleons. And so the difference between them is of the order of about 133 times the energy yield in this instance, okay, which you can project out. In the way of teleportation, I'll show this later. It almost doesn't matter which one of these you use. You're gonna, in this case, you're gonna crush it into something heavier, right? At the point of phase singularity and within the possibly within the event horizon. In this instance, you might just turn the matter into light and leptons. So it doesn't matter whether you're using a yin structure or yang structure, you're going to end up with kind of things that are not going to be beneficial. Now, that being said, if you can manipulate using the subtors, the epsilon and mu, such that the permittivity is transitioned into a different domain where the speed of light and other parameters of space-time are sufficiently altered, you could potentially shrink, and it's like a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids type thing. So the yin force, rather than crushing the thing, would shrink it, and then and this would be necessary that you had a matched yang, and that they were quantum locked. And then what would happen? It would go into a wormhole. This would facilitate the teleportation of material and objects through all forms of matter, ordinary matter, because it would be just at the Planck's distance, and it would then come out of the yang, and rather than being destroyed, it would just be reinflated. Okay, so this would be deflation, and this would be reflation, and so that would give you your Wheeler type wormhole, and this is effectively talked about by Matsumoto in his 2000 book, Steps to the Discovery of Electronuclear Collapse. And I refer you to page 91, okay, here, where he has a toroidal vortex type structure that crushes matter into a point of electronuclear collapse. And this travels through a wormhole, and it comes out through a white hole. The white hole is bright because it's a white hole. This is a black hole because things go into the black hole. Black hole, central point, wormhole, and then comes out to white hole. In the terms of Shakparinoff, this would be, let's say, somewhere either in the center of the phase singularity or here. This would be the black hole, and this would be the white hole. Okay, so it would be something akin to that. Right? If you only use the yang, you would turn it to light and leptons. If you only use the yin, you might end up just crushing it into something that was a miniaturized version of what the matter was before, and it might all just become super heavy elements that then decay. But I believe that if you had created a cohered yin and yang subtors, and then phase synchronize those to at the point of ingestion in the black hole creator, and at the point of ejection at the white hole, these were quantum locked. At the point that this disappeared from here, it would instantaneously appear over here. So you would just, and I think probably with experience, you would find out what would stop things from being crushed and what would stop things from being turned into light and leptons, and you would end up with a system that would be effective at teleporting, and all you would need to do is to have these generated, move them into the start location and the end location, and then cause them to interact with the matter that you wanted to teleport. So that would be essentially it. And because you are going, and as it's clearly stated by Matsumoto, as it goes into a wormhole, the width of the Planck's distance, it would literally be able to go through any ordinary matter. And in fact, because they're quantum entangled, you would end up with the instant that it disappeared from here, the thing would instantaneously appear over here. Okay, so that is the basis for teleportation. So I think both are possible, and I'm going to show you from physical experimental data that is in this presentation that I gave to ICCF 25, where you may observe that. So this is the Penrose staircase here, and this is what I mean is your matter comes up through the light well here in the building, and it gets to this point, and it doesn't matter whether it's a yin or a yang, okay? A yang going round in the right way, unraveling matter, or the yin going round in the left way, condensing matter. It doesn't go up or down when it gets to the phase singularity. And so that's why you can get unification of the forces via the Ehrenhoff bomb effect at that point. And this is the Mobius strip that is an example of that. And this is the phase of a vortex soliton, which also has this phase singularity. Okay. So this is the basis for the toroidal moment, which was discovered by Dubovik, Vladimirovich Dubovik. You can go and look at my discussions on that, but essentially it produces the phase singularity. Okay. And this is Neil Crichton Gould's reactor that inspired me, and this is published in Science, and this is showing you how to get a toroidal moment from orbital currents, and that is what I believe is creating here. And this is a yang. In fact, it might even be a yin, but whatever. The matter in the center here has disappeared in a sphere. Okay, but the structures that would have created this would have been at least two on the outside of this sphere. Okay, this is a much bigger structure. So this is kind of what's going on. You have your yin and yang making either a yin and your yang, and we have the spherical zone that is made the thing to disappear. And this is the disruption zone that comes down here, and you can make matter fall apart. So it might be that you want to be in this zone or within the non-radiating boundary. Maybe this zone, or there's like a safe teleportation zone. And I think that over time we will establish what that is if no one is willing to tell us. Okay. Right. So this is where the azimuth comes through, and we showed that in 2017 where the suction beam comes through, but it sucks through and it doesn't go out the top. It sucks through here to the still, quiet, calm bit in the middle. Here you can see it sucks through and it stops. There's nothing going beyond this point here, because that is when you get the shift in the whatever. Now, it's this image over here that's very important to the wormhole concept, because in here we can see on one side of the sacred geometry, inside the golden ratio line and inside the Vesica Pisces, there is crystals of boron. And this is aluminium in ultrasound in water. The ultrasound in water will lead to the fractal toroidal moment. I've explained how that occurs due to the hydrophilic nature of metals and due to easy water and so forth, and extreme hydrodynamic shear. That leads you to form your fractal toroidal structures, and they will, even in water with sound, very, very quickly lead to these gravitational waves and beams, and you will always get a pair. And on the other side, so we've got boron crystals forming here, which is aluminium minus oxygen, and there is no calcium here. Over here, we've got calcium inside the golden ratio line, inside the Vesica Pisces. We have calcium with no boron, and some isotopes of calcium are aluminium plus oxygen. So it would appear that we have oxygen atoms teleporting round here, and this is the yang. It's destroying the matter, tearing off the oxygen, pulling it round here, and forcing it into the yin over this side, which is assembling matter. So if you can get something to squash something into a wormhole and move it over here and not force it to through the yin force to be so actually live thinking about this right now, it might be that you have a weak yang force which kind of like converts the wave function of the matter into like this signal that gets teleported down the wormhole as a wave, and the matched quantum cohered yin reassembles exactly what was over here. So if we can argue that the oxygen was disassembled, put into a wormhole and as a wave function, and brought over here and reassembled, but unfortunately we were doing a bit too much yinning and we ended up by creating calcium, then, you know, we have our methodology for creating John Archibald Wheeler's wormholes using black holes and white holes. Okay, so I think that it's probably now on live, reconsidering this, I think possibly it is the Yang force. Yeah, anyway, it's one of the two, like I say. So we'll work it out. All right, so there we go. And I've explained this before, and that's how we get this structure, and that they can be many different structures. And this is where it becomes very important for what we see in that video, because this is a fractal torus, and it is transporting with it this carbon. It could be that what might happen is there's one other option, that once it goes into this structure, you could effectively put it into this new space-time bubble, this with its change in the permittivity, the epsilon zero of the vacuum, and then you move the whole lot. So not teleporting, but you move it, and within the structure, the thing is captured, and it's moved instantaneously to another point, at which you then ask the orbiting structures to move out, and the thing just appears in a new location. So this would be teleportation, but in a different sense, without having to go through a wormhole. This would be more akin to transportation, capture and transportation. So I'm talking about a third option for what might have happened. Why I'm referring to this one is I think the subtor on this is 3. I can definitely say that the subtor on this is 6, but on this one, which is a much smaller fraction of another one, this is 3. Okay, so we have subtor of 3 and we have a subtor of 3. Okay, so we know that we can create this effect with 3 subtors. Okay. And I've gone back at length. People can go through my history of finding this one, and finding this one, and then discovering the chemistry of life work of Zverblis, which was sent to me on the 1st of May 2022 by Vladimir Mikhailovich, of this 1995 paper. And essentially it discusses, along with the 1993 paper in another peer-reviewed Russian journal, Electricity, where you have the pointing vectors not dissipating when you have a Tor of a Tor of a Tor, or a Tor of a Tor of a Tor of a Tor. So a third or a fourth order Tor. This is a third order Tor. Okay, so this will create a closed pointing vector, and with a closed pointing vector you can add energy until you get the in the word of David Freiberger, the disassociation of baryons from the Dirac sea, and the matter just disintegrates. Okay, well, we don't really want that if we're going to save our passengers from MH370, or we do want it if we just want to demonstrate that we are able to take a Kinzhal and make it disappear before it hits its target, or a plane that's carrying a Kinzhal or something like that. Yeah, if you wanted to stop a nuclear weapon, let's say in flight, and make it disappear and not have the uranium or the plutonium rain down on the population below, you wanted to literally make all of that matter disappear into light and leptons. That is what you would do. Okay, so I believe that certainly it would appear that that is possible, and the reason I say that is because this is a close-up of what I was showing you physically. This 15mm ball lightning section cut out of a highly thermally conductive copper pipe. And over here, on this point here, we have observed a torus structure, and that might have been one of 3 that resulted in this structure disappearing, or more than 3. But what you see around these structures Okay, and I can show you actually if I go back up to here and show you this. This is what the first video that Henk sent me. And you can see the overall fractal toroidal structure with the non-radiating boundary marked in what appears at the end of this, which is an impact mark of a ball lightning on the anode sheath in his reactor. So we're going to be seeing this. Okay, and it gets it into focus. Okay. Right, so this is the tor in the center. This is our sacred geometry, our golden ratio lines. This is our orthothic triangle. This is the non-radiating boundary. And outside, these are subquanta that are starting to become part of the Borg, right? Okay, so these end up being, and we've seen these on that torus structure, on the copper, outside of the copper pipe. They come in pairs, just like they came in pairs in the soliton in the 2017 ultrasound in Suhas Raukar's lab. Okay, and these, because they attract each other and self-organize and become part of the collective, these are self-similar but smaller quanta. Okay, so you can imagine similar toroidal moment structures wanting to be part of this larger, bigger structure affected by its toroidal moment and its coherent matter zone around it. So what does that actually end up being? It ends up being this, where if you look at, I'm looking on the SEM, you can go and see the live SEM session where I find all these for the first time, but it's on the boundary. So just outside here, outside the 15mm ball lightning cut, we have a 2-order structure with the Paisley vortex going in. We have a 3 here with the Paisley vortex going in, and this is what I see going around that plane. Okay, you've got one of your subtors here, one of your subtors here, and one of your subtors over here, and it creates this disappearance of material in the core. Okay, if you go to a swastika sort of 4 structure, subtor structure, you end up with something that doesn't really have the Paisley. It doesn't have this sort of question mark type thing. It starts to become more like a hole. When you've got 5 or 6, with 6 it's definitely a hole, and when you start to get to like 8, you start to end up with substructures in there. So you don't really want 8. 6 would be ideal, but why have 6 when 3 will do the job? 3 is much more stable, right? It's like a 3-legged stool. It's much more stable. 2's not so stable, right? 3 stable, yeah. Okay. And salvistica as well. Yes, the opposite. So one the swastika and the salvistica. One will be one end of the teleportation system, and the other one will be the other end. So what are the basic structure? Well, this is, if you have it, I'm going to do a 3, just for the sake of, so people can visualize what we're talking about here. But what happens is your this area here is where we see our Ukon of Asara, yeah? So the area above, basically this area here, which is above the still quite calm, the Maltese cross here, this area here. So that is that bit, that bit there, like on the human face, it's that bit there, okay, yeah. So that is what we see in those videos, is the glowy bit. That's where the phase changes, as I showed on the Aalto University pseudo-monopole, topological monopole structure. The non-radiating boundary overall is out here. We have a less intense one. Like this is the field area where things actually happen in this level of the torus. And I've shown this. You can go look at my work on remoteview.icu and the videos where I show this and go through all of its stages of the wheel within a wheel within a wheel. So if you can imagine, this is a 2-2-2, or rather 1-2 and then 4 like structure. This is a 1, 4 and then 4. Okay. If you had a 3 around here and each one of those had a 3, it doesn't need a 3, but it could be a 3, like I showed you on these structures here. So we've got 3 around here making a tor and 3 around here making a tor. then we would have what we see in that video. Okay? And so Bostic and Nardi observe these things. We're back to our Wheeler slide. This here is actually from a 2007 sample from John Hutchison, which I analyzed on the 17th of August 2023. I will talk about this in the Mr. Possible materials, and look out for the launch of that book. It is coming. And what you see in this cavity here is smaller cavities, and this is not too unlike aluminium oxide. It's an aluminium sample, but in the center of each of these cells of aluminium oxide, there's iron-rich spheres, okay? In each one, right? But in the overall large cavity here, there is a copper-rich sphere, okay? So this is more like a toroids and then a spherical structure with a sphere within a sphere, if you know what I mean. The next one here is the bottom disruption zone, and I will publish this video of the analysis, I hope, next week. But on the outside here, there was just normal brushed brass, and on the inside of the disruption zone here, which is the same as the subterranean level in the Great Pyramid of Egypt, there is a crust, but underneath the crust, which you can see at this point here, there is a hexagonal array of pits. And the distance between these pits is exactly equivalent to the 1981 sample here that I also analyzed, a sample of that I got from George Hathaway on the 17th of August 2023. I got it last December from him. And the distance between these holes are the same as was replicated by Henk Uren and observed in the analysis here in the disruption zone on the brass sample. Okay, I'm going to play the discussion here from Tom Bearden again, but essentially something similar was seen in my view, in the Japanese cold fusion work with these regularly spaced oxygen-rich particles. And this is like a tuft sort of sphere covered with tufts in the work of Sapphire Group. And these are torus holes cut out of this part here. But I'm gonna let Tom talk about his understanding, I think from the 1990s, of an analysis of other fragments from this sample, which I looked at on the 17th of August 2023. But it is what it is, and it can do what is claimed.
Gravitational potential is made when electromagnetic forces fight themselves to a draw. In other words, the gradient becomes zero. The gradient vectors, or the resultant, become zero. But the two forces are still in there slugging it out. All the energy is still going. The work is still going, but it's trapped locally. That's internal energy. That's what gravity is. Another thing you do with such a thing is you cause the magnetostatic potential to change a vacuum. In other words, that's pole, an unfortunate name in magnetism. But in other words, it causes deposits of monopoles inside materials such as metals. And you'll literally have the monopoles repel each other, and you'll have the explosive separation of metals into all kind of grains and structures according to the waves. And another thing it does, since this stuff comes from the nucleus out, it doesn't go through the electron shells. Its medium is the nuclei. What you have then is you have changes in the atomic nuclei, and which result in lattice changes. You have the production of alloys, which cannot be made in this world, normal processes. Another thing you have is once charged with scalar radiation, the nuclei then continue to discharge over a long period of time. And so the material continues to change, alloy form and so forth, over a period of even a year.
Okay, so he told that when you get trapped electromagnetic energy, that is what gravity is, okay? And what you get with these fractal toroidal structures is you get a closing of the pointing vector, and therefore you can dump more and more and more and more and more electromagnetic energy into a central point, and that effectively will create a gravitational black hole, is essentially what he's saying. You are seeing it physically observed here, and you are seeing the effect here in a simple Vega experiment by Henk Uren. So there we go. We've done this in the lab. It looks like a big flash when you see it. It can consume matter, as we have shown here, and make it disappear. And when it does that, it has a big flash. And the substructures, which we know come in and like to join the Borg, can be triangles, and these also create disappearance of matter in the center. It is all the same thing. It is rather trivial, and so forth. Okay, so so there's the same sort of paisley going on in a tornado. We will I hope to have an update next week on the wonderful developments and findings of Henk and Tony Yaboni in the wind hex, and we'll talk about that then. But in terms of the transportation device, one might like to consider what I also shared in the presentation at ICCF 25, and that was this AC Holt August 1979 field resonance propulsion concept presented to NASA. And what we have here is a current loop, 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 current loop, right? And they come together to make a toroidal moment, but they didn't know what that was, and a magnetic field reconnection and a vortex structure with an azimuth going through the center. Okay, it's exactly the same as this, but as I've showed you from our physical experiment, you only need 2, but 3 is more stable, right? And so you can look at this. If you take out every alternate one here, okay, you can imagine that you would end up, and this was not just a basic current loop, but it's had its own toroidal moment. You would have a second order toroidal moment. Let's go for a third order toroidal moment. You would end up by creating a black hole. But if you move this through with a shift in field, or you locked this to some interacting electromagnetic waves, standing waves, phase conjugated waves, you could then move that whole object instantaneously, and then maybe, when I say instantaneously, extremely fast, and then move it to another location, and then lay it down and break these carrying, transporting fields from around it in its end destination. So that will be a main means of not direct teleportation through a wormhole, but transportation. But for the people inside, it would appear like you've teleported, because like in a blink of an eye, you've appeared somewhere else in space and time, right? So you would be perceiving it. And moreover, not only that, when you're in this structure, you wouldn't perceive space and time ordinarily. So you would literally lose perception of time at the point that those objects come in on the video that Ashton is showing. And then when you arrive at your destination, it's only when these things collapse, you then re-enter ordinary time, and you would start to perceive it. So for you, it would effectively be an instantaneous teleportation. Okay? So this comes me to my last major point. I'll just go, actually, before I do that, this is this very important work by Afanasyev and Dubovik in their Joint Institute for Nuclear Research, some remarkable charge current configurations. It's talking about these fractal toroidal structures, and it's saying that they produce a Aharonov bomb effect. So that's just to settle that debate. But I want to go back to this one. So this is the one that I was talking about, where we have effectively teleportation of oxygen from one side to the other, but the in-force is reassembling it into something, a heavier element. So maybe we don't want to have the in-force so strong, and maybe, anyway, that is what I was talking about there. But it's this particular diagram down the bottom which I want you to refer to. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to step away and just make that a little bit bigger, just for the sake of showing what I'm talking about. Hopefully I don't mess this up. Right. Okay, let me see what happens now. Okay, all I've done is blown this up for sake of argument here. And why am I pointing this out? Well, this is like this, right? In that it is a compliant magnetohydrodynamic structure. But this is on an Ohmasa steel vibrator plate. Okay? And the structure has cut out 2 triangular holes. Triangular holes. Why? Because it's not a 2 or a multi-tor subtor structure. It has 3 subtors on each side. Okay? And in fact, on the right-hand side here, you can see a little blob in that corner, a little round blob in this corner, and a little round blob in that corner that may even be composed of multiple blobs in their own right. Okay? But what we can see is that we have a section that has been eaten away in the center of here. So, in my view, what you are looking at there, along with what I've shown you in other empirical data that we have shared before I was ever aware of these videos and the discussion surrounding them, a technology that can, with 3 subtors, extract a zone of material and do something with it. There we go. So, in my view, this is my hypothesis for what is going on in the video that is being shared by Ashton Forbes. Okay. Someone wants to see what these things look like. Henk Uren was able to create. We went through a series of different experiments and accidental serendipitous things, and we came up with this, and this produces the torus structure with the beam coming in, and we want to work with people that are interested in making a direct electrical energy generating device using this understanding. So this is the Tor with the feed-in line and stuff. So, and that is that, and that is. So this is the sample which I was referring to earlier, and that is the disruption layer at the bottom, which is exactly equivalent to where the Pyramid of Giza's disruption layer is. And here you can see Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower. There we go. That's the Wardenclyffe Tower. And that's the impact of a EVO on fused quartz. That's Alien Scientists' image here. And you can see there's a 200 million year old ammonite, and here is Tesla's logo, exactly showing where the Yukon of Hasara is on Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower. And where this disruption zone is, in Tesla's patent, it says that if you move the secondary takeoff a little distance down, you will create a ball of plasma or whatever, a ball of light, and it will destroy the apparatus. It's highly damaging or something along those lines. So if you move this down exactly at the point that we have this disruption occurring in our physical experiments, you will get that. And as you can see over here on the right, this brass was laid on top of this. We have this perfect, absolute perfect matching with the sacred geometry. It is what it is. It's precise. It will always do the same thing. It is a technology. It's a technology likely that the ancients knew exactly how to do. It has been rediscovered. This is Tesla discussing the weapon to end all wars. And you can see in the background you have a vortex and a counter vortex correctly overlaid with an offset, just like you're seeing over here. Just like you're seeing over here, creating the lump with the wormhole coming out and making a hole over here. Okay, so there is the wormhole here, and it's splatting the matter down here. And I have another video which I hope to share next week, and it's absolutely incredible what is in this area in the crystals of the copper that have been deposited on the iron, as opposed to the material that's outside of this central zone. It's absolutely incredible, just like it's utterly incredible what is here compared to exactly just outside it. Absolutely amazing. So Tesla is showing in this 1935 press photo where the sacred geometry cap is, the Unification is over here, and this is the Vesica Pisces, and everything with the particles and everything. It's absolutely precise what Tesla was trying to get across in that video. Okay, with that, I'm going to say, if you've got any questions, I think from my point of view, unless anything more interesting occurs, or it's categorically proven to be fake, I would suggest that the MH370 videos are plausible. Whilst I absolutely 100% could have faked them with the knowledge that I know now to try and pretend that, you know, this is something that happened, I could absolutely do that. And I could have done it with my skills probably in 2000 and the equipment I had in 2000, the animation tools I had in 2000. 100% I could have faked that. But with the balance of evidence, the timing, I'm not a time traveler. I didn't go back in time and tell someone to do a video like that with the Unification, what do they call it here? The spin change here, the spin up in the other side of the monopole. Okay. I didn't force them to do that, okay? So, and I think that in child's play terms, you should be able to get the basics of what is going on from understanding this and how energy needs to be radiated out, and understanding this and how it affects speed and rotation and angular momentum between the two here, and the phase singularity that this leads to, modeled here and derived from John Hutchison's work. And this is John Hutchison's work where Ton Bearden said that it is producing monopoles which trap energy, and that causes and the trapped energy is gravity. Okay, so it's all entirely consistent with both top peer-reviewed papers and well understood mainstream science and the physical observations we have been sharing since 2017. Okay, so I'm going to see if you've got any questions. I'll answer them as best as I can after I've gone to the little boy's room. Okay, I would advise people to go and look at my video, the monopole clutch, and in particular the section that I talk about the work of Mikhail Solin and his 1992 paper, where he talks about an electron beam arc furnace, electron beam furnace, free electron beam furnace, projecting the beam into a low vapor pressure metal. This produces a melt zone which is resonant. This results in the formation of solitons of two magnetic charges, and that these aggregate together and lead to unification of the forces inside spheres and tubes. He precisely talks about coherent matter. In fact, it's the pattern is a coherent nuclear reactor, and this is before anyone made a Bose-Einstein condensate. So this is coherent matter, and specifically it is causing unification of the forces. He does talk about the fact that it leads to the decay of baryons, which is protons and neutrons, and therefore, you know, if you're not going to be using the teleportation method or the transportation method, which would appear like teleportation to the participants, you know, maybe the most easy thing to do is to make something turn into light and leptons, or crush it into something of denser material, which effectively is dependent on whether you're doing a black hole or a white hole, whether you are doing a yin overall fractal toroidal structure or a yang overall fractal toroidal structure. Okay, so and the other thing that I said I must talk about is the permittivity transitions. I'm not going to go through it. You can go through it and literally it will blow your mind, because it will fill in all of the gaps that are necessary to understand, in my view, the observations that you are seeing in this hypothesized event, if it is indeed factual. Even if it's not factual, I'm of the firm believer that given what we have seen in physical experiments, and with what Mikhail Solin observed, and what S.V. Adamenko observed, and what Takaaki Matsumoto observed, and what Ken Shoulders observed, and what John Hutchison observed, etc., 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 that this is possible. So if they didn't do it, well, bad luck them, because it is actually possible. And there we go. And yeah, there we go. So I'm going to look at this. So it's just type in permittivity transitions Ken Shoulders, and it's from 2000, and I will include the link in the remoteview.icu blog associated with this presentation tonight. But you can go and have a look at it in your own time. So, and it's currently loading up. Okay, so this is the abstract of you can see down here, it's from the 4th of September 2000. Okay. Highly organized micron-sized clusters of electrons, or electron validium, having soliton behavior with electron populations on the order of Avogadro's number, are represented as the necessary function for modifying the permittivity of space in a downward direction. The state of existence for this entity reduces its expressed charge by many orders of magnitude below that calculated for the same number of and volume of uncontained electrons. The electron validium, or EVO in modern parlance, is shown to exist in at least two distinct modes of charge masking. One of them, the black EV, being virtually undetectable as using sensitive methods. A form of inertial propulsion will be discussed that arises from the inertial rectification effects available by modulating the state of the EVs. Thereby, the permittivity of space and concomitant inertia, or effective mass of material moving through space. It will be shown that the same type of permittivity change through exotic vacuum object modulation can achieve a unidirectional current flow, and that this gives rise to methods for generating monopole effects and vector potentials useful for communication outside of the usual loop generating them. Coupling between the EV structures. Complex organisms are discussed composed entirely of EVs, structures that are made on the benefit, that are self-formed at electronic rates without using either mechanical or chemical methods. Some speculations will be made on the benefits of operating such complex entities in regions of greatly reduced permittivity. A condensed matter dissolution technique will be shown that is capable of cold dissociation of refractory material into low viscosity fluid. The root process for energy conversion methods resembling cold fusion are reviewed and shown to likely spring from the same EV technology capable of producing modified space permittivity. Consideration will be given to experimental methods for testing effects on time at greatly reduced levels of permittivity. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, it's a fun read, actually. And when you understand, for those people that have been following along since 2017, it'll kind of all fall into place. You'll start to realize, oh, okay, that's kind of what is going on here. For those that aren't, then it'll be still intriguing. And so you get superfluidity, there is inertial propulsion. He discusses the experimental data that allows you to understand that this is true. He talks about mass reduction here. He talks about that within the bubble, the speed of light changes, and therefore so does time as it's relative to it. Anyway, it's wonderful that he did all this work. So thank you, Ken Shoulders, for laying this out for humanity so that when the data follows your understanding, we can better move forward. I think what I'll do is I'll break this down. You know, we've got the time modification here. And try and help people understand this. So, but I think for homework, people should go away and read this paper. I think the core part of the paper is 9 pages long. Okay, so it doesn't take too long, but I don't want to really go into it in too much detail in this video. Okay, so okay, so I'm going to see if you've got any questions. So hi DIY projects with Chalksis, hi KB, hi Space Case, hi Dave Strom. We've got a good quorum here today. Hi Corky Goss, hi CC, hi Ken Pratt, hi Standish. Who else have we got in the house? Hi NG. Hi, Alex Timofeyev. I hope I got your name right there. Maybe not. Likely not. Hi, Paul O'Neill. Hi, Corky again. Great to have you here. Anthony Williams, Shanjak. Grub O'Neill. Wow, we've got a really good quorum here. Thanks, guys. Hi, Alex Del Castillo. Hi, Morgan. Hi, Nick Knock again. Thank you for your question earlier. Right, I'm going to see if you... Hi, Aidan Sheffer. Hi, Nicola Cola. That's quite cool. I like it. Hi, Tammy. Right, so let me see if we've got any questions here. Hi, D2105K. Great to have you here. Okay, so... inertial rectification, that's what I'm talking about. Yes, exactly. So CC says, Bob, in your opinion, how does the phase singularity actually track the plane? Also, how does the orbs multiply? Well, it's not that the phase singularity is necessarily tracking the plane. It's that let's say the satellite is tracking the plane. It knows where it's going. or the AWACS that's somewhere in the vicinity, or the drone is tracking the plane. So they got a positional reference to it, okay? And they can do that from triangulation, from optical triangulation, and they can do it maybe from radar or other you know, means. Now, the thing is, when these things close in and it goes either into the transportation mode, the destruction mode, or the teleportation mode, you're going to lose the object that you're tracking through these electromagnetic means, because it will become within the altered permittivity and the different space-time, and you will not observe the objects. And so you lose tracking of that. So that's why you have to do the pincer maneuver very, very quickly. So you go, you're tracking it, and they're not aligned to create the Tor level above, and then they move in and pincer it, and at that point it's one of those three modes of things going on. So you can just normally track it. So just like anything can be tracked. So Raycar says, and hi Raycar, when do we get our flying carpets? I think it's so far past time now, isn't it? I think it's about time we get our flying carpets. Hi, Vanilla Isis. Okay, I'm just, for those that think I've gone to sleep, I'm just looking to see if there's any questions in there. A great discussion going on in the chat, so really nice to see. Yeah, so CC is saying, as I understand, Bob, there is no conventional machinery associated with orbs. They are like etheric flywheels made of pure, well, you're saying pure motion. They are pure motion in the ether, I guess. Yeah, at an abstraction level above that, they would be set in motion by electromagnetic waves, and you know, creating charge separation, and then, you know, self-organizing, and then you guide those by phase locking them onto what do you call it, standing waves with 180 degrees out of phase standing waves with electromagnetic waves, and so you can shift them around. So when you understand where they can sit in these phase conjugated patterns, you can arrange them and move them around and guide them and so forth. So Dinah Beaver says that plane video is undoubtedly fake. Well, fine. Undoubtedly, I could have faked it, but not back then. Only with the knowledge that I know now, and probably I wouldn't even have thought to do that anyway. But the two videos line up, and certainly the fact that they have the non-radiating boundary, and they have the what do they call it? The this spin up, the kind of change in spin from, you know, the node in there. It just, there's so much going on that shows that it is using this technology that, like, you know, it would be surprising if you couldn't do it, and if you couldn't do it, well, then they're a bit behind the game. You know, they faked a video and accidentally showed the technology and how it would work. Yeah, I mean, people talk about Space Force and, you know, it being a big thing. well, if you're only going to able to take rockets up and normal traditional projectiles up into space and then look down with ordinary cameras, and it seems absurd that you would go to the trouble of creating a whole new division of the military when you had nothing other than standard cameras and standard kinetic projectiles to use. And given the energy requirements of typical high beam and standard energy lasers that can do work at a distance, it just seems silly. But if you can create something where you can create something that feeds its own energy needs and then just guide it into position and then get it to do different work based on how you organize the substructures that you make, then that would mean that you would have a much easier system to do a range of effects. So yeah, I wouldn't bother launching Space Force until I had this type of technology. It would be pointless. But with this technology, yep, if there's a missile coming towards you, yeah, we can take it out. If there's a Kinzhal, like a super hypersonic missile coming towards, yeah, we can take it out. These things are, much more interesting. Question: can you post the article at RV? Which article are we referring to, Corky? Do you mean the one by Ken Shoulders? Actually, I have to show you something today, which was a little bit odd. Today, I have the pleasure in announcing, sort of, that the number of subscribers to the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project went to 6660. So thank you to all those people that subscribed on today when we potentially announced this technology might have been used to either rescue or dematerialize MH370. The channel gets 6660. Oh dear. So Misha Graysky, I'm not really one for like looking at UFO videos because like I want to see craft landing or people coming out of it. I didn't. The first person I talked about my experience was when I was 7-year-old. Was a guy that sponsored the project, and he happened to keep sending me emails saying you really should look at these the Serious Disclosure Project or whatever it was from Stephen Greer. And this went on for years, and then I thought, oh, well, I better look at it. Oh, it's about UFOs. That's interesting. And so the next time I saw him, I just told him my UFO experience. And then I talked with him about one other person until I spoke to our Australian journalist friend a few years back, Russ Coulthart, and so like I say, only recently did I work out that it was probably from Shoreham Airport. And the thing is that obviously I experienced that, but it was weird because our dad told us to come downstairs and look up into the sky. It happened, and then he told us to go to bed when it finished happening. That was like, okay, Dad, right? Because like, okay, and you don't think about it, but I could not in all honesty not address this material claimed to be from MH370, and only really, you know, it was grating on me seeing those balls, and they looked like exactly the same as what we observed in 1979, which is the same year, by the way. It's the same year as that NASA paper, like the NASA propulsion system, right? So it was in 1979. I kid you not. And right here is the AC Holt propulsion concept. That, I believe, is not a coincidence. I think that they knew about this. Right? Okay. So, I'm very interested in seeing samples that have come from a purported UFO. I'm very interested in videos of greetings and meeting and greeting with aliens. But almost all plasma balls, in my view, are natural phenomena. And they can be replicated by man, in my view, and have been able to be done for a long time. So Krieg Alert says, any more content about the pyramids coming in the near future? Well, I think the most relevant one is the one that I was talking about earlier, where the brass on iron, which has a map of the Great Pyramid of Egypt on the back, I will share the video of the subduction of the subterranean area on that brass sample. And I will also share the area where the material was splattered down, because it is exactly what is going on, and it has the keys to why the pyramid does what it does and why and how. So Standish says, maybe we'll meet an intelligent plasma orb, Bob. I think that's what we all are, is exactly that. You know, we have the pattern in us, like we have this pattern in us, right? Okay, it is that pattern. It's literally in your face, and it's in every proportion in your body. We are just we're condensed plasma. The yin force, the female force, made us in the image of the technology. Thanks, CC. So Salvatore Pi just did a 3-hour talk with Demystify Psi guys. Great. Yeah, it'd be nice to compare notes with Christopher Dunn. Are you being approached for any podcast like Danny Jones? I would love to see your message. Okay. Well, I've been trying to keep it quiet for and make it get it out there as fast as possible, but with people that can follow along. And you know, once the core technology was out the door, which it basically is the core understanding, it's now just, you know, recognizing where it is being used and has been used. And my focus is, so I had a discussion on safety with the Sapphire team last week, and all things I've just discussed before, but you know, not everyone's got 2 months to go through the material, so I broke it down. I will do a presentation on that coming up, because it's a little bit more succinct what I did for them. I'm going to be helping the former director of Hokkaido University who reached out to me this morning. Sorry that I haven't emailed you if you're watching this. Who wants to replicate the work of Matsumoto and Amasa, and now that he's retired, he can explore the science. And obviously I'm helping Malcolm Bendel and his team and seeing if I can verify the claims that are more GEET-like rather than the sort of standard sort of reduction in emissions which have been observed in other systems, particularly those that inject water gas into hydrocarbon engines. So, you know, we're moving into the direction of being able to test the more extraordinary claims. And to that end, I will be taking samples off the 8-year run large thunderstorm generator and hopefully getting some good microscopy and macro photography of that inner sphere. And I'll be sharing that with you. And I've got to do my paper this month for my ICCF 25 presentation because I think it needs to be done. So Steve Tippett, hi, says, hi Bob, how is a permanent magnet full loop different from first level Tor? Well, firstly, it's extremely big. And so we're like the bigger you get it, like the more useless it is at doing the job. And so we're talking about structures that, well, if you look at my, let's have a go here. The smallest Tor structure that I could see in the John Hutchison materials that I derived the fractal toroidal structure from, I didn't even bother to include because I only needed 3 levels. So where is it? So the big one here is 1.6 millimeters with 48 divisions. I don't know how many are around here, but this is, I think it's like 400 microns across. This is like 50 microns across. And I think this is like, this level here on the top left is, what would that be? It's like 12.5 microns or something. Anyway, it's much smaller. And so, and I don't know how far it goes down. It's just like, the point being is that if you have a structure that's like 1 millimeter across, it has to have a minimum of 2 subtors. Why? Because if you only have 1 subtor, you're actually at the Tor level below the overall big Tor, right? You're not at the N Tor level, you're at the N-1, but that actually becomes the N, right? So you need a minimum of 2, and that is true of every way down. And you can imagine that this rotates through 90 degrees each time in the 3 axes in sequence, such that if you still have to have 2 at the subtor below it, then this goes all the way down to the Planck's distance. Because that would, in theory, or a 2 Planck's distance, that would be the smallest thing that you could have something orbiting around in order to make a subtor, right? Beyond that, there is, you know, you could argue whether there is a division beyond that, but probably not. So, yeah, it's almost whatever size you're looking at it, it's, I don't know, the magnets are not the same thing. For whatever reason. They're not the same thing. In fact, the magnet is, okay, so let's think about this. The magnet is producing a directional magnetic dipole because the spins on the overall spins of the material making it up aggregate to have the dipole, right? Whereas in the toroidal moment structure, it's actually an electric current going around in a loop on a coherent quantum macro scale. It's a macro object. It's not like one atom. It's like lots and lots and lots and lots of things collectively acting together. So maybe if we go to this one, the wave here is a very low frequency electromagnetic wave, let's say, going round one way and going round the other, and that ends up by giving you your phase conjugation in a loop. But it's a lot of energy that would ordinarily comprise of trillions of electrons, but cohered down into a charge of like 1 minus 1, right? Does that make sense? It's not the same thing. Magnets arranged are not the same thing. Great, Space Case. It would be great to see your experimentation on that. He's talking about a toroidal structure. So, Bob, is the CNO cycle in air? You have an idea it has how this is moved, ultrasound, laser. The CNO cycle is claimed to be what happens on in stars as one of their means of generating their energy. And however, I believe that in these kind of structures, these toroidal structures, it can occur because of the phase singularity. So, and it can occur at any temperature. So, Freya and Hella Black, hi. Creating perhaps on this realm a tractor beam at this point. Well, this would create a tractor beam, and you would control it by controlling the distance between things. So, like as I've shown in these presentations here, this thing here is pulling material in here, and you can see videos on our YouTube channel where that gets pulled in. And so this is effectively a tractor beam. It's a gravitational azimuth. Misha Graysky, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. If you could take a look when you're offline, I'd appreciate it. Appreciate the thought. Okay. But, you know, that I see so many people showing videos of artifacts created by AI, or artifacts created by encoding or video, or artifacts created by in between frame encoding or video, or blooming caused by lens effects. So many things are just like it's tedious. So I'm interested in alien landed, came out, greeted. What was the conversation? I'm really interested in samples that I can analyze, or technologies that allow to do weird stuff with other weird things that are otherwise unexplained. Most, like I say, most things are just standard ball lightning in the air type things. Okay, thanks, Misha. Okay. Nicola Cola, is there a MFMP Discord server? Not that you should make one. There are people that are taking chats out of even these presentations. That's cool. I have too much to do anyway, so I will respond to people that put comments on YouTube, and I will respond to people that put comments on remoteview.icu. I prefer they put it on remoteview.icu because I believe there's more security in the longevity of comments put there. Let's put it like that. So Raycar says, question, did you look into the neutrino pyramid paper that claims 2 grand galleries? Yes, and if you look at some of my videos on that, I very specifically say where I believe that the final grand gallery will be found, and the reasons why it will be that shape and in that location. Okay, so I'm just going to do a quick recap. Essentially, what we were talking about today is some videos which some people claim are fake, and they may well be. But I had to step in when I saw a certain level of, and these videos are claimed to come before the work that the MFMP has done, especially since 2016 onwards. And so therefore, I'm kind of compelled because of what I was seeing in the more recent videos. So what can you do? Here we go here. If I can get the video to come up. So thank you to Ashton Forbes for his work on getting this out, so that it got the attention that it has had. Thermal imaging on the left, one of the two satellite images on the right. Apparently the one on the left is from a drone. Orb comes in. Second orb comes in. Third orb comes in. They go into equidistant orientation. You can already see the Ukonavsara, and you can clearly see it here. And then they pinch in together, which will, according to John Archibald Wheeler, increase the intensity of the gravitational azimuth from the individual gravitational fluxes that go through the fractal toroidal moments, and that will lead to the formation of a black hole or a monopole. And so again, and you can see possibly the means by which these things are self-powering by extracting energy from their local environment. And getting ready. Boom. And you can go and see videos of this kind of thing occurring in reactors from Henk Uren, as I talked about. And we will do that. So this is a coherent matter traveling wave, came out of fusion work, non-radiating boundary. This would be if you capture something in there, but with the fractal toroidal moment creating the non-radiating boundary, you could trap the plane in there and transport it. And again, it would appear like teleportation to the individuals. This is where a toroidal moment cluster leads to the disappearance of material. This is one of the first ones I saw. And we've recently analyzed these two electrodes, and we found these clusters are on here, synthesizing matter. This is thousands of years ago in Helsinki. The structure, as you observe in simulations of Jacques Paranov's work, which create the yin and the yang structures. You would combine these in some way to create the black hole and the white hole. This, you could argue, is the black hole at this point, and this is the white hole at this point. And if you could have these quantum linked in some way, then you might be able to get something to go into the black hole and come out of the white hole, as described by Matsumoto on page 91, which you can go and download the book, or you can get it actually from Amazon. It's at cost. It's at page 91. There we go. Toroidal structure forces things into an electromagnetically produced black hole. And there is a wormhole. Things go through the wormhole, out, and into a white hole. Phase singularity. Go and see my presentations from ICCF 25. This is how the toroidal moment is structured. You can go and look at these papers. These are the kind of effects you get and other effects you get. This is how I derived that, which produces the phase singularity. Here is a torus, a fractal torus with 3 in the subtor, and here is a broken fractal torus collapsed wave function. These are all calcium oxide, by the way. They're calcium oxide because calcium oxygen and calcium oxide are all paramagnetic. The carbon orbits around the outside and goes through the center because it is diamagnetic. So paramagnetic material either synthesized in there or coming in from the outside can get locked into the fractal torus electromagnetic structure. Okay, so yeah, so this has got 3. This has got 3, just like you see on the video. This is what I derived. I said the torus is probably the structure of the physical vacuum when I published this. Then we found the physical objects, and this was sent to us by the Russians. This produces an electromagnetic phantom, which is a closed Poynting vector caused by the electrodynamics. And you can calculate that from basic Maxwell equations. It was done by Nevesky in the late 1980s, and it was again done by David Freiberger in 2009 to explain ball lightning observed in national labs in the US. Here is a ball lightning taken out, and this is essentially what I see may be occurring in the event there. And again, on the periphery of here, you see one of these similar structures coming in with 3 subtors. And so this is a 2 subtor, 222. This is a 444 on the fractal way down. And John Wheeler explains not only can you have light forming a circle and creating a gion, you could also do gravity. And so he's explaining how if you had more than 1, but 3 would suffice, and they had a gravitational azimuth through them, that would produce a gravitational loop, and that would produce another collapsing thing, and that's exactly what you see. So he's saying that in this test, which has been a replication of 1976 work in 2021, major peer-reviewed journal, you have the magnetic vector coming in here to a phase singularity in the central line of the torus here, and we already know the gravitational flux comes in here, and so we will have unification of the forces at the phase singularity. And this is things that occur by it in the John Hutchison work from 2007. This is in the work of Henk Uren, and this is the work of John Hutchison from, I think, 1981 or early 1980s. And we observed exactly the same phenomena observed by Tom Bearden. And in this video, he's describing this sample and saying there are deposition of monopoles in there, and they cause, and the monopoles are, to a degree, a result of the cancellation of forces and the production of gravitational, focused gravitational energy. And that's what it does. Like I say, you can download this whole video and go to the links in there and understand this is communication technology, how it affects psychology. This is a transportation of cold current, and it's all explained. This is disruption of matter using the fractal toroidal moment. This, I believe, would be a sufficient explanation for the transportation of method for this technology. And effectively, it's doing this. So this is transportation of a large amount of energy along a guide wire. In this case, you're kind of like you're taking a package of material, in this case the plane, to a distant location. And I explained how this produces a wormhole, and at least oxygen is transferred from one side to the other. And most importantly, to line up with what is observed in those videos, you have triangular holes in each side of these vortexes, this vortex and anti-vortex pair. And so the triangular hole cutting into the steel plate is equivalent to the fractal toroids in the corner here, making an overall larger fractal toroid and consuming the matter. And Aronoff bomb effect, and that is about it. And you can see it in Tesla's 1935 press photo for his weapon to end all wars, which creates a invisible Chinese wall because it's China. And here is the wormhole as well, and we've done a recent SEM of the center of this, and you can see the two, the vortex and antivortex pair, it would seem, in the center of this. And so it's possible that you could teleport through material because you're going through something that is at the Planck's distance, and so it shouldn't ordinarily interact with matter. And it's like if they're quantum like entangled, you might end up with the information going in, the permittivity adjusted, it compressed down into something that's the Planck's distance, the information transferred over here and reconstructed by the coherent counter vortex. That would be the ideal form of black to white hole teleportation. And here you can see the structure, and you're going to see some amazing things from the bottom of here and some amazing things from inside here. And this is just, it's a little bit of magic here in this sample from Henk Uren. So thank you to everyone that has supported the project over the last several years. We're starting to get to understanding real applications for this technology. And so thank you very, very much for your time, everybody. This was MH370. Is it an application of the fractal toroidal moment? And on the assumption that the videos are correct, I would absolutely and categorically say yes. Were the passengers saved? Were the certain to die passengers essentially exploited as a means to test this technology in a real world setting? I don't know. I can't answer that question, but I'm pretty certain that the families of the passengers have suffered greatly for their loss, and I'd like to reiterate my heart goes out to them. Thank you very much, and I will see you in the next video.